everyone, and welcome to the next Elite Home Tutoring SAT webinar. Thank you everybody for joining us. If you weren't here on the previous webinars, my name is Karen. I'm the Associate Counselor here at Plexuss, and we have with us Christine, who is our SAT tutor from Elite Home Tutoring. I put in the chat to connect with Elite Home Tutoring on Plexuss. I put the link on the chat so you all can access it through there. You can go ahead and copy and paste it on your browser. You can go ahead and connect with Elite Home Tutoring from there. While Christine is lecturing, you are free to ask her any questions. You are free to interrupt her with any questions you all might have, and you can do so by putting in the chat your question. You can send it to everyone, or you can go ahead and send your question privately. You can also ask your question by raising hand, and you can do so by clicking on participants, and the raise hand option will be right there. You will then wait for me to call on you, and then you'll be able to speak to Christine directly. If you missed the previous webinars, they are all recorded and they are placed on our Plexuss YouTube page. You can, well, our Plexuss YouTube page is called Plexuss Social Media, and they are all right there. So you can go ahead and access them through there if you weren't here then. And that is it from me. Christine, let's get started.
Okay, awesome. Good to have you guys here today again. We are working on some algebra, heart of algebra section of the SAT test, which is the very big section of the test. Most of the algebra you've learned quite a while ago, and that's the important thing to take note of. You learned it quite a while ago, and the way the questions are asked is the important part. I will give you some very basics for the different types of questions and some examples. And then depending upon how much time we have at the end, we'll do a few more examples from a practice test or two. So if we are ready, I will pull up my Heart of Algebra sheets here, and we will get started. I think I see it. This will be a 30-minute session. So somebody asked. And here we're going to start here. And we've got in front of us, let me make sure we're scrolling. Scrolling okay, Karen? Yep. Yep. Okay. SAT Math Heart of Algebra in both the calculator and the non-calculator section. So brush up on your basic math facts, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. If you're a little rusty with them for the no calculator section, and the basics are use the quickest approach that without an error. You don't want to be so quick that you make it an easy error subtracting instead of adding, because that answer will be right there waiting for you to pick the wrong answer, because SAT is designed in such a way as to recognize the types of errors that people make when they're in a hurry on a test, and they offer that and you think you got it right, and you're surprised when your score is lower. So use the quickest approach without error. You could solve an algebra question, quote, algebraically, obviously, by creating an equation or just isolating a variable. Sometimes that's a lot more work. That's a lot more work. You can always, and we've gone over these strategies in previous webinars, plug in the answer choices in front of you because you want to use those. Plug in numbers when you have variables in the question. So whichever approach is going to be your personal quickest and most effective, and no errors being made. As you're practicing the Heart of Algebra, as with the other math sections, notice which types of questions are taking you longer. Take your time to do them, and then after assess, I did it, but it took quite a while. Is there a faster way to do this? Is there, or do I need to practice these more? Are there any questions? I think I saw a question. Karen, is there a question there that's relevant?
No questions.
Okay.
No questions. There's just responding to the questions already on the chat.
Okay, there you go. So number one, some of the simplest questions that you will see on the math section of the test are linear equations with one variable. So this question here is taken from the College Board CB SAT Test 1 No Calculator section. It says if x minus 1 over 3 divided by 3 is k and k is 3, what is the value of k? I skipped that k in there, but that's okay. What's the value of k? So this is straightforward, simple, get it right, don't miss it. So the first thing you're going to do, and you can see how I rewrote it here because then it looks a little different than this as this fraction. X minus 1 over 3 equals 3. I substituted 3 in for k. Substitute k for 3 and multiply both sides by 3. Then that means you can cross out this 3. 3 over 3 is 1. And you get x minus 1 is 9. Add 1 to both sides. And your answer is 10. Straightforward, no issues there. Okay. Notice that if you had subtracted one of the, I did not provide the answer choices, but one of the answer choices was 8, and so you don't want to make those kind of little mistakes. Okay. Next one. Section 2. Linear equations and expressions in 2 variables. These can be of varying difficulty. This one is more straightforward. It's also from the College Board SAT test number 2, test 1, excuse me, no calculator. The question reads, this is straight from the test. On Saturday afternoon, Armand sent M text messages each hour for 5 hours. And Tyrone sent P text messages each hour for 4 hours. Which of the following represents the total number of messages sent by Armand and Tyrone on Saturday afternoon? So now it's a bit more challenging since it wants you to create a linear expression to represent a real world situation. So my first point here is notice how the answers are different. Compare them. You have 9MP, which obviously came from adding the 5 and the 4. 20MP, which is from multiplying 5 and 4. And then 2 separate expressions. 5 is multiplied by M, and the reverse in answer D. So the first thing you want to do is carefully, this is a fairly simple one, but you want to apply these strategies to the more challenging and more lengthy questions. So carefully check what M and P represent in the question. M is Armand's text for 5 hours, and P is Tyrone's text for 4 hours. So that means we are going to match them up. Reread the question. Which of the following represents the total number of messages sent by Armand and Tyrone? So we can eliminate A and B, and then we are down to matching up properly the 5 with the right person. So that gives us answer C. So this is a simple question. It's important to not get bogged down in the beginning of this question. Kind of zoom through the beginning. Sometimes they're very lengthy. It might be a big paragraph. And go to the variables. Go back. Notice what the variables are. I like to say attached to. They're multiplied to. And then find your answer. So notice how the answers are, and then backtrack. Any questions on that? Relevant? No. Okay. Another important part of the test includes absolute value equations. They will ask the questions in different ways. May not be just a straightforward absolute value question. Most people haven't done absolute value in a little while, so it's important to review it, because if you a little absolute value review will go a long way to get 1 or 2 questions correct. So when you have an absolute equation, x plus 5 equals 6, absolute value of x plus 5 equals 6, you have two equations to solve. And this is the part most people have forgotten. X plus 5 is 6, and x plus 5 is negative 6. And then you solve algebraically by isolating the variable, and that will give you an answer of 1 or negative 11. Again, they will play with the absolute value equations, but you do need to know the basics. That's the most important thing. You also need to remind yourself of your foiling in algebra. So first, outside, inside, last. Some students in certain areas haven't learned it as foiling. So you might have learned it as just distributing. There you go, thanks. Distributing the numbers. So x goes to x multiplies to 4, then our next number 2 to x and 2 to 4. So x times x plus x times 4, 2 times x and 2 times 4. There are your terms, and there's your final answer for foiling. You may be tested by reversing the process. They may give you x squared plus 6x plus 8, and then in your answer choices, you may be asked to factor it. Or the question may say, which is equivalent? Okay, so if you have answer choices that have these factors, then what you want to do is, if you're faster at foiling, then use the answers, foil it out, and see which one gives you the given, the part of the question. The question may also be phrased, you may be asked to find the zeros. So the zeros are, what are the solutions, what are the roots? I recommend that you write this terminology down, because a big portion of the test is not the material, but the way they ask the question. And then they want to stump you. So the zeros, the solutions, the roots. Okay. That is important. Cannot go onto this test without a review of that. Okay, next one. Finding the sum and the product of the solutions to an equation. Okay, so if they ask you, and we're going to go from here to an example that I have in the text, in the practice test. Find the sum and the product of the solution to an equation. First of all, remember, sum is addition, product is multiplication. People forget it. It's important to know the terms. So the first thing, it's almost always on a no calculator section, not a calculator section, because then you can just punch it in and have your calculators find the solution. So it's not going to happen. First thing on the no calculator section is reduce the equation if possible, because it'll be easier to work with without a calculator in front of you. Set the equation equal to 0, and then you can either use the quadratic formula or use my tricks that are below. Use the quadratic formula. It's going to waste a ton of time. Make sure you know the quadratic formula for other questions, but I don't recommend using it for when they ask you find the sum or the product of the solutions. So when the equation is in this form here, okay, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, you can find the sum of the roots of any equation by taking negative b over a. Negative b over a. You can find the product, the multiplication of those roots, by doing c over a. Much, much easier. One or two students here and there have learned this in math class, but the vast majority have not. So write those two down, take a moment and write them down. They will help you. And then I'm going to flip to the test, practice test 2, and take a look at a problem on the test. Okay. Question language for this. It may say, what is the sum of the solutions? It may say maybe you replaced with the roots or the zeros. So important. Okay, let's go to practice test 2. No calculator, question number 13. There's a total of 20 questions. Here it is on the test, on the no calculator section. So this is considered closer to the end, so a little bit harder. Okay, let's have you guys work that. So you have the expression to use from here, sum, negative b over a. And let's go back. Okay, what is the sum of all values of m that satisfies 2m squared minus 16m plus 8 is 0? Okay, so It's no calculator. I want to save myself some time. So I'm going to reduce. I can see that I can cross these out. Not very good with my drawing here. And it will be, and you write it on your paper, m squared minus 8m plus 4 equals 0. Much simpler. Now, perhaps they're hoping you're just going to use that quadratic formula or do some factoring. It is not going to factor well. It is not going to factor well. So take a moment, use the little trick that I just gave you guys, and vote for your answer in the chat, please. A, B, C, or D.
Feel free to send me your answer privately as well.
Don't read them off until everyone's done. And you can let me know when you're ready. Couple more moments.
Okay, let's give 10 more seconds.
Okay.
Okay, there is 6 D's.
All right, very good and very quick. You followed that. The sum is negative b over a, and you got the answer. Had you done a quadratic formula or tried to factor, you would not get integer roots. It would have been a wild goose chase, taking a lot of time. So put those on your list of things to memorize. Formulas I gave you the last time or two ago, and go from there. Very, very good. And you would also see the product of the solutions or the product of the roots or the zeros as well. So all you need to do is put it in that form. Okay. Any questions about it? Comments? Seems like a cheat, but it's good. It's a good cheat. Math?
I think
yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
Or please let me know. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know how to pronounce your name, Shloka. If this is a question of yours or a comment. It says, in these kind of equations, is b minus 16 of 16? I'm not quite sure what it means, but Shloka, if you can send me a chat.
B is negative 16 in that equation. It's the constant next to our b value, next to our middle value when it's in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is 0. You could also have not reduced it, and you would still get negative 16 over 2. So then negative 16 over 2 would give you 8 as well. Yes, so b is the negative 16. Make sure to take your negative with it, or else you'll get it wrong. And you can see that A and D are 2 options, so someone could easily have missed it. Did that answer the question?
Please let me know, yes or no.
Okay.
Okay, I think.
Awesome.
I think yes.
Okay.
Yes, there we go.
There you go. Okay, another nice little trick when doing simultaneous or a system of equations is knowing, and I'm going to give you this part first before reading the question. Always try stacking the equations first. The SAT really loves to give you 2 equations, and then they give you a question, not just what's the value of x or y, but x minus y or 4x minus 4y. And that's your clue that you're probably going to want to stack those and then try adding and try subtracting them. So don't just go at it and say, I'm going to solve for y and then substitute in. That's a time waster that you probably don't need to do. Okay, every once in a while they may give it to you, but 99% of the time you want to stack. So the question is, you already read ahead, I am sure, if 4x plus y is 14 and 3x plus 2y is 13, then what is x minus y? Okay, so let's try adding them. So I put them one under the other, and we get 7x plus 3y is equal to 27, and there's nothing there. It's not like you can reduce that somehow and come up with an x minus y. But if I subtract those two equations, then I end up with x minus y is 1. And yes, I just got my answer. Lickety split, if they would say x minus y is equal to 1. And in the answer choices, one of the answers is 1. So the key there is when you're solving simultaneous equations or a system of equations, and they're asking you for something besides just a value of x or y, try adding or subtracting them. It's an awesome, awesome little thing to save time. Any questions about that? Okay. And then let's see what we got here. And then next one is on my handwriting here. This is using plugging in. This is also from the test 2, question 15, I believe is right here. So question 15 is, here we go. The expression 5x minus 2 is equivalent to which of the following? In a previous session, we talked about plugging in numbers for your variables, and this is an opportunity to do so. Let me go back to my handwritten page. Okay, oops, not that one. Okay, so what are my options here? Long division is what they're hoping you're going to waste your time on. Not that they're hoping, but that's what the ploy is. So I wrote it out here for you. If you did long division, it would look like this, synthetic division. Many of you have learned it once before. Okay, or can I just cancel out my terms? I may not cancel out my terms. If you go back to adding and subtracting binomial or polynomials in a fraction, you must be able to cancel the x out of each term connected by a plus or a minus. So you could not cancel the x's out, which would have given you answer A or possibly answer B, because you can't, there has to be an x in each of the terms. Does that sound familiar now that we're thinking about it? Now that we're talking about it, it's been a while. Okay, so then long division takes a while. You can't use the answers. So what about plugging in a number for the variable? Yes, I'm going to arbitrarily, just decidedly, use the number 2 for x because it's easy. Don't use 0, don't use 1 because it makes a mess of the equation because of identity issues with a 1 and the 0 factor with the 0. So when I plug in 2 for that expression, that gives me 10 minus 2 is 5, which is 8 over 5, or 1 3/5. You could decide to leave it or not. You don't know what your answers are going to look like. Now plug in to the answers, that is, plug in the x as 2 into the answer choices. Answer A, 5 minus 2 over 3 is 1/3. Answer B, 5 minus 2/3 is 4 1/3. Answer C, 5 minus 2/5 is 4 3/5. D, 5 minus 17/5, which is 5 minus 3 2/5 is 1 3/5, which is the correct answer because that's what we had when x was 2. So therefore, D is your correct answer. And so on the test, you would be marking D. So much easier than having to fiddle through it. Use that as an approach for yourself when you hit any kind of question that has an odd mixed fraction in it, and they just want you to rewrite it. Okay, any question about that? Okay, now we'll go to our test and do a couple here. Okay, So we are going to do question number 20. Zoom on down there.
Christine, there is a question.
Yes.
This question is from Camila. She said, what would be the best way to solve for this problem?
Which problem are we talking about?
I'm guessing the one we just did previously.
Oh.
Or Camila, can you specify, please?
So the best way to do that problem, if that's what you were asking, maybe, yeah, I don't know, is the way that I recommended it, which is to plug in, not to do long division, not to cancel out terms because there's nothing I can cancel out terms, but to plug in a number for the variable. I'm assuming that that's what you were asking. Plug in a number for the variable and then find out the outcome. Then plug the same number into the variables in the answer. The one that has the same answer is your equivalent expression. Okay. Let me go to number 20, page 20 here, or question number 20. Yeah, there it is. No, that's 18, isn't it? Sorry. Now, question number 20 is not on here. Okay, well, we're not going to do that one. They decided not to put question 20 on here. Okay, so let's go to question number 6. Go up to 6.
Christine, there is another question.
Okay.
How did you plug 2 into the answers? There was no X in the first option.
There was no, okay. Glad we're thinking. There was no X into the first option, so I simplified the answer to see if it was equivalent to the 1 3/5. So what I did is I just simplified it. So I said 5 minus 2 over 3, actually, which is 1 over 1, not 1/3. And then 5 minus 2/3 gave me 4 1/3. The bottom two, C and D, had variables, and that's where I put the 2 in, right here and here. So does that make sense?
Let me know, yes or no. Yeah, yes, perfect.
Okay, awesome. I appreciate the questions. Okay, here we go. So we are going to do a different algebra question. And this will be our last one of the day. So you will need to remember your slope form, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. In the xy plane, a line L is parallel to line K. So notice you've got an L here. You've got your K here. Okay. What is the value of P? Where is P? Here it is. Okay. So I need to know what I'm going to do. If I have lines, I need to know that parallel lines mean they have parallel slopes. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to use the slope formula, y minus y over x minus x, to solve for number 6, and then we will put your answers in the chat and find out how you did on this. This is just a basic algebra question. As long as you know that formula, you're good. Okay, go for it.
Again, feel free to send me your answer privately.
Yes, please do. Again, use the y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. Make the slopes equal to each other and solve for P. Okay. So using our points from the line, your first line should be, there we go. Okay. So 2 minus 0 over 0 minus a -5. Do we have any answers yet?
We have one answer. Would you like to wait for more? Oh, we have two answers.
Okay. Yeah, I will wait.
Okay.
Yeah. See, this pen is not good enough for me. Okay, 30 seconds, and then we're going to go for it. Okay, so we have 2 minus 0 over 0 minus a -5. So that gives us 2 over 5 for the first line. And then the second one, we're going to say 0 minus a -4. 0, let's go. 0 minus a -4, which gives us 4 over p minus 0. Okay, so that gives us 4 over p. Make those two equal to each other. So you have 2/5 is equal to 4 over p. Cross multiply. What does cross multiply? 2 times p equals 4 times 5. 2 times p equals 4 times 5. 2p equals 20. Divide both sides by 2, and that will give you an answer of 10. Did people that voted pick D?
Yes, we had
Awesome.
4 Ds, and there is also a question.
Yes.
The question is, can we consider -5 and 0 as x1, y1?
Good question. -5 and 0 are in the x place on this graph. So they are the x values, the x1 and x2. 2 and 0 are the y1 and y2. Okay, so the x values for the second line K are p and 0, and the y values are 0 and -4. Very good. Are there any last questions? We are going to move to functions and graphs when we meet next. And I will give you a sampling of the types of questions that you will see and some basic ideas of how to approach those questions. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And if you put them in the chat and we pick them up next time, that's fine as well. Functions are related to algebra as well. So, okay, Karen?
Okay, there is a question. It is a clarification. Would it matter which point is x1 and x2 or not?
Good question. It does not matter. No, it does not matter. If you start with one expression, use the same one for starters with the two y's. So don't flip-flop them, but otherwise it does not matter at all. So take the easier one. Go with positive numbers rather than negative numbers if you can. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any last-minute questions? Okay, I think that's it.
Awesome.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so here are some ending notes. The next webinar will be the SAT math test, functions and graphs, as Christine mentioned. It will be next Monday, April 20th at 1:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We will very much appreciate it if you let your friends know. Let them know that the upcoming webinars are on the SAT math test. You can use the same link to join our webinars. We will also very much appreciate if you download our Plexuss app. If you download it, you'll receive instant notifications, and then also rating and review our app. We appreciate your feedback. Chat with my counselor if you have any questions regarding this webinar, or if you would like to reach out about your specific journey to higher education. We are always to help in answering those questions as well. Connect with Elite Home Tutoring on Plexuss. I put in the beginning of the chat their link to their profile. Another way you can access their profile is by clicking the logo on the banner at the top of our Plexuss newsfeed page. There you can go ahead and connect with them. Lastly, if you weren't here in the beginning of the webinar, all of our recorded webinars are on YouTube. Our YouTube page is called Plexuss Social Media. They will be available within 24 hours of when the webinar was recorded. All right, so thank you very much, everybody, for joining us, and thank you very much, Christine. We will see you all on Monday, April 20th for our next webinar. Bye, everyone.